Everything is a performance,
Right.
and everyone is a performer, right? So if you're on a standard corporate job from the hours of 9 to 6, you are somebody's employee. Then from 6:01 onwards, you are someone's wife, someone's husband, fathers, mothers. And so we're constantly playing these different roles throughout our life.
Beautiful.
The entertainment industrial complex is designed to distract. The distraction of the entertainment industrial complex means avatars and your Marvel films and your big spectacle films where go in, don't think about it, just consume.
Wow.
Creativity is the ability to observe the world around you. So even as I'll put myself in the role of an accountant. I observe how better accountants do it. And once I observe, how can I begin to steal from them? An inspiration point of view.
Hello and welcome to the Dreamcatchers Show Season 2, where we capture inspiring stories, one dream at a time. Hosted by your very own Shalima Motial, powered by the Resilient Investor. Associate sponsor, Ritika, your health coach. Knowledge partners, Global Indian International School. Media partners, Crazy Talk. Hair and makeup by Chandni Sahu. Today with us, we have someone who's inspired thousands of people, trained thousands of people, and is my personal dream catcher because he's mentored and trained me as well. And I am so excited to sit and talk to him here and hear all about the acting methodologies, the training program, how important the moment before is. So this is Kamil Haque we're talking about. He is the Chief Moment Officer of the Moment Before, a revolutionary corporate training and coaching company in Singapore, powered by the theatrical arts to supercharge your performance. Kamil, a multi-ethnic Singaporean, is also an award-winning actor, director, producer, storyteller, and influential acting coach, who has shaped Singapore's performing arts landscape through his pioneering work in actor training and arts education. As the founder of Haque Center of Acting and Creativity, all of us lovingly call HCAC, he has trained thousands of actors, corporate leaders, and creatives, blending international methodologies and local cultural insights. He was most recently on the TEDx stage presenting his talk, How to Ace Your Next Performance, the power of the moment before. And I was fortunate enough to see it in person. Yes, so please help me welcome Kamil Haque. Yay!
Hi, Shalima.
Hi, so happy to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now let's start with, how did you start acting and then also think of not just acting, but training?
It was a means for me to get out of my parents' hair.
Oh.
Mainly because I had a lot of excess energy as a kid and I needed somewhere to channel it. And they didn't quite know what to do with it. And how they decided on acting was simply because of two things. The first is they brought me to the then Orchard Cinema, which is now Orchard Cineleisure, to watch a film, Dead Poets Society, starring Robin Williams. It's an inspiring literature and professor in a very rigid boarding school. So he does not fit within the norm. Okay. And so he's reminding his students that you don't have to fit within the norm, to find your own voice. And when we're done with the film, I remember them buckling me into my seat and we're driving home. And as we're driving home, I'm asking them questions about the events that happened in the film. You know, why did it end this way? Why did this character have to do this? And I distinctly remember my dad, who does not say very much, he jammed his brakes.
Okay.
And both my parents turned to the back seat to look at me, and they give me this look like they brought home the wrong child.
No.
Like, these are questions a 7-year-old should not be asking.
Okay.
And yet, I was so intrigued by what had happened in this moment because with both my parents always working, it was rare that I got them in the same place at the same time, let alone this amount of focused attention.
And attention, yeah.
And I knew it was something to do with that film.
Right.
And if that film got me this, I need more of that. And then number two, it just so happened that my parents had a family friend, and her name was Julia Gabriel.
Okay.
And she was starting one of Singapore's first speech and drama schools for kids. And so my parents said, you know what? Since you seem to be really loud and rambunctious and all that, why don't we put you with Julia? And learning under the tutelage of Julia gave me a place to focus all my energy and all my enthusiasm.
Wow.
And it was there that I found my love for performance.
Wonderful, great. So much love. And because you wanted all that attention and you liked it, that you decided to go to LA.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us about that experience.
I first met Julia when I was 7 years old.
Right.
We fast forward 14 years later. I am just about to finish my national service stint. And truthfully, I am a very proud failure of the Singapore education system. I did not fit the mold of what the Singapore education system needed, but I knew I desperately wanted to learn how to act.
Right.
And I did not know where to go because I just didn't have the grades to go to any of the local universities. And my parents didn't know what to do because they're not from the world of performance. The next best person I could speak to was my very first mentor, Julia.
Right.
And she said, well, don't worry, there are options for you. There are schools in Australia, London, there are schools in America. And I was so overwhelmed by the names that she was telling me. And in the process of telling me all of these names, then she said, you know what, Kamil, you should come and teach for me. And I'm like, sorry, what? She said, yeah, come and teach for me. I'm like,
and you've just graduated from school.
I said I'd finished my high school here, and then now I was in the army. I had never taught in my life. Right. It was like December 2003.
2003.
And she said, school doesn't start for a whole year, so why don't you come teach for me while you're sort of figuring your life out? And so for a full year, I taught for her, and that's why I picked up the love for teaching, which I then brought with me to LA. Now, how I ended up in LA is after this overwhelming conversation with my very first mentor, I get back home and I go, wow, I've got all of these options. Wait, I don't remember any of the names of the schools that she said because I was so caught up by this job offer. And then I remembered, I think there was one school that sounded like a French football team. Hey, Google, Strasbourg acting. Because I love football, so I knew it sounded like Strasbourg Football Club, right? And then Google said, oh, did you mean Strasbourg acting? So then I click on the website and then I see all of these alums, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Marilyn Monroe, Paul Newman, James Dean. I'm like, okay, I've seen their films. I love their films. I guess I'll go here.
Wow.
And that's how I ended up in LA, by sheer accident.
Interesting. Now, my research tells me that you went to Strasbourg Method Acting and you went to the institute and you said, okay, I want to teach.
Yes.
I love that confidence, but I also want to know, where does that confidence come from? Because you just finished your high school.
Yes.
You have no formal education and training in the arts. You haven't learned. So instead of going there and saying, I want to learn, you go there and say, I want to teach.
Correct.
Okay, explain.
So that 1 year of teaching with Julia absolutely changed my life forever. It birthed in me what was first planted as a seed as a 7-year-old, where it wasn't just Dead Poet Society as a film and acting as an idea. It was the influence of Robin Williams, the charisma of Robin Williams, the ability for him to touch the lives and hearts of the people that he was working with and to see them for who they were now and who they could possibly be if they gave themselves the permission. And there was something about that year where I got to experience that as a teacher for Julia, that when I got to LA and they brought me around the campus, they said, these are the classrooms and here's the schedule. I said, how do I start teaching here? And they were like, sorry, excuse me, what? Nobody ever has these requests. And then we just went back and forth. And I said, I'm not leaving this office until I get to teach here. And they said, okay. If you can last the distance of the entire program, because a lot of people actually drop out of the program because it's hard. If you can last the distance, then we can talk about teaching. I said, it's good enough for me. Let's pick the classes. Let's go.
And that was a 2-year course.
And it was a 2-year program. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I still want to know, were you born with this confidence? Or you were like faking it till you made it?
You know what? There is a lot of power in ignorance. I have to say, because if you don't know what you don't know, then you're not clouded by other people's judgments, impressions, so on and so forth. And then, there's almost like a willingness to charge forward and let's just see what's in the other side of the hill. And then I'll figure it out from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then they stuck to their promise? They gave you the job?
Yeah, within the first 9 months, I found my mentor, Hedy Sontag, who has recently passed. And she was one of the 3 remaining people left alive at that time in 2005 who were trained by Lee Strasberg to teach his work upon his passing.
Wow, okay.
And I said, hey, Hedy, we barely even know each other, but I would love if you could take me under your wing and teach me how to teach. And she didn't hesitate at all. She said, sure, let's do this. I'm like, oh, okay. So she said, this is how it's going to work. During my classes that you're going to take as a student, I want you to sit next to me. I'm like, okay. And then how it would happen is during these classes, she would instruct whatever was happening on stage. And then she would say, okay, Kamil, so this is why I said what I said. Now you understand my justification, my thought process. I'm like, okay, writing these things down.
Right.
And then after a while of doing this, then she said, okay, Kamil, you can take the first 5 minutes of the class. And then 5 minutes became 10 minutes, 10 became half an hour became 45. Then it became half a class. Then it became, when she was ill, I would substitute for her. To the point where by the time I finished the 2-year program, and I went back to the office and I said, hey, listen, I finished the program. When do I teach? And then the administrator looked up from the thing. She said, don't you already teach here? I'm like, why, yes, I already teach here. And she said, great, you start on Monday. I'm like, well, okay then.
Fantastic.
And then that's how it happened, yeah.
Wow, that's such a brilliant story.
Yeah.
And then what made you leave that and come to Singapore?
In the middle of 2012, I got approached by a friend of mine, and he was putting together the first ever ASEAN Film Festival, where we were gathering delegates from all 10 nations to Kuching, Malaysia,
right,
to screen these films, have a film market, have workshops. And he said, can you help me build this festival from the ground up?
Right.
And so I said, sure, why not? And so over the year of 2012, we built this festival together. And then at the end of 2012, I went back for Christmas holidays, and he said, listen, while you're there, can you start contacting and getting a Singapore delegation together? So I started doing that. And in the process of putting together the Singapore delegation, strangely enough, I didn't get as much support as I thought I would get for something as grand as this.
Right.
I got a lot of pushback of, who the hell are you to try and put together this film festival? We have no idea who you are. You're nobody in this industry. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I've just been in LA for 8 years. I haven't done much in this country, but I'm putting this festival together. And they said, well, listen, if you're an actor and if you said you can teach acting, then you should start a school. I'm like, okay, thanks, but I'm here to really talk about the festival.
Right.
And then that conversation repeated itself multiple times. And then in the festival itself, it repeated itself multiple times. And that momentum kept building to the point where after I was done with the festival, literally 2-3 days after coming back to Singapore from Malaysia, I called a buddy of mine, his name is Raymond, and I said, hey Raymond, here's the thing, I don't think I'm coming back to LA. So can you help me sell my house and my car? Can you ship back my books and my files and some of my clothes? Because I need to start my school. And the reason is, I knew that if I had gone back to LA, I would find every excuse to delay. Correct. Because in my head, starting the school was only going to happen when I was 45 years old, not when I was 30 years old.
Wow. So every time you were taking these classes in LA, the end goal in your head was teaching only? Or did you also simultaneously took part in acting productions?
I did. I definitely took part in my fair share of acting productions. But the end goal was always to teach and to be able to bring the gifts of what I had learned
Right.
back to this part of the world so that other people could have the same access to the stuff that I had.
That's such a lovely, brilliant, noble cause. Now tell me, what were some of the obstacles that came in your way when you moved back, and since people were like, oh, who are you and whatever, right? So now suddenly establishing your school, what obstacles came your way and how did you overcome those?
I didn't have a business plan.
Right.
I had all my savings in my bank account and I just opened the school. Learning how to be an artist in a way is kind of entrepreneurship in its own sort of way. But it's entrepreneurship where it's Kamil Incorporated and I only have to worry about myself. I don't have to worry about rent, utilities, staffing, HR, marketing,
Yes.
all the challenges that comes with any form of an actual business that is beyond yourself.
Right.
And so in putting the studio together, I had to figure out how to learn all of those things on the fly. And again, it's just charging over the hill and seeing what happens, but also getting comfortable with asking for help. Which was something that I was not used to doing. Simply because if you want something done, just do it yourself. Right? And that's only useful up to a certain point. And then after that, as an entrepreneur, you begin to be the choke point for your own business.
Right.
And so I began to at first rely on the kindness of friends and strangers to help me to staff the school, to help me to staff events, to help me to fix things around the school. And then through that, eventually, the other challenges that I got on a wider scale, purely from the arts industry perspective, is I learned in a very backwards way that for the most part, as sad as this sounds, actors don't really like training, at least maybe in this part of the world.
Really?
Yep. There's many reasons behind this. One is the barrier to entry to being an actor in Singapore is not very high. And it's the only art form where nobody wants to see your technique. Therefore, anybody thinks that they can do it. And most production houses, for the most part, don't actually require you to be a trained actor in any form of any methodology. Realistically, if you've got good social media numbers, you're already castable because the assumption is if you can do it online, you can probably do it in front of a camera on TV. So that's one. Two is if an actor has done 3-4 years of an arts conservatory program, because the barrier to entry is not very high, then therefore the industry itself doesn't require you to keep reskilling, retooling, sharpening your knife. Like you can almost learn on the job, so to speak.
Okay.
And then therefore you don't need to get those skills beyond the conservatory aspect of things.
That's strange. So what was the initial challenge then in recruiting a set of people? And that time you were just focusing on actors, right?
Yes.
Training them in Lee Strasberg method of acting.
So it was to tell them like, hey, listen, while the industry is at this level, you can see what's happening in the rest of the world, that the rest of the world, the industry is at this level.
Right.
And if we're always talking about Hollywood, Bollywood, all the other major markets in the world, surely there's some aspiration for us to get out of this ceiling to move to this ceiling. And in order to go from here to here, this big gap, you're going to need some training. You're going to need the craft. You're going to need to create some standards of practice within this business so that if you, at the very minimum, can hold yourself to a higher standard, then you can hold the industry to a higher standard. And training is the one place where there are no consequences for the amount of experimentation that you are allowed to do. Because once you're on set, once you're on a live stage with a live audience, there are consequences if you mess up.
Absolutely.
Your audiences might not come back again if you mess up that show.
Right.
Or the viewership might go down and you won't get a season 2. Or you get written off that show because you were just not easy to work with on that set. Right? So then therefore, why would you, in the limited amount of opportunities that are available to you in this tiny island,
risk it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where training comes into play.
Right.
You raise the standard by raising yourself, and then you raise the industry.
Wonderful. So let's talk about the moment before, because when we talk about training, it's not just for actors. I remember your TEDx talk, and everybody needs those public speaking skills in this day and age. And the moment before does that, right? So tell us a bit about that.
So a big tenet of the moment before comes from the idea that I believe that everything is a performance and everyone is a performer, right? So if you're on a standard corporate job from the hours of 9 to 6, you are somebody's employee or somebody's leader, right? Then from 6:01 onwards, you are someone's wife, someone's husband, someone's father, someone's mother, someone's cousin, someone's sister, and all the various domestic roles that you might play outside of work. Then on the weekend, you are someone's best friend, you are someone's cousin, you are someone's lover. And so we're constantly playing these different roles throughout our life. And so as long as you have some form of an audience, you are performing. And this is not just me saying it. There are sociologists that have also backed up what I'm saying too. And so with this understanding that if you're constantly performing, then how can you begin to prepare yourself better so that you can always put out the best version of yourself in whatever performance that you have, be it personal or professional?
Beautiful. So how do people react to this? And what are some of the common myths you see in people that, training, acting, we are a different set of people, we don't require this, or we don't need it. Or if they're not in senior positions, people might feel, I don't need to address a crowd or speak at a conference, so I don't need it. Then how do you convince people that you need it no matter what role you're playing and where you're playing that role, right?
So the funny thing is that everyone at some stage in their life has dreamed of being this superhero version of themselves. And yet, for them, we're going back to the idea of the gap. I am here, but I really want to be here. How on earth do I bridge this creative gap? And that's what I do when I say, hey, listen, I have some tools and skills. They just happen to come from the world of theater and performance. And they will be the ones that will help you bridge that gap. And they're no different from you learning how to do a spreadsheet, how to do a PowerPoint deck. It's the same thing. I mean, there's the unfortunate use of the word soft skills. And I'm not a fan of the word soft skills simply because I genuinely believe they should be rephrased as essential skills. Being able to speak, communicate, articulate your ideas, think critically, to be able to collaborate. All of these things are essential skills. I could be the smartest person in the world, but if I don't know how to share what's in my head, then what's the point of having all the degrees in the world, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. You've emphasized the importance of, let me try saying it, Enthisiasmosh, right?
Yes.
Okay. Connection to God in transformative artistic experience.
Yes.
Now, how can individuals cultivate that and that spiritual connection in their daily service and practice, be it actors, corporate professionals, homemakers, whatever?
So if we can agree that everything is a form of performance, most people then assume performance is how you physically embody whatever it is you're trying to say or do. Vocally, how you say the things, right? Mentally, intellectually, what are your thought processes and inspirations for things? But the thing that people don't really maybe put enough emphasis on is your spiritual prep. And spiritual prep could be if you are religious, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean religion. Spiritual prep to me also means Enthisiasmosh, which evolved into the word enthusiasm. It's an ancient Greek word, which really means connection to God. If I were to say, Shalima, how do you know when someone is displaying enthusiasm or is enthusiastic? What would you say?
Their excitement for life, their energy, the body language, the way they present themselves, their speech, their pitch, everything.
And everything that you describe is exactly the kind of qualities that you would want in a leader, in a friend, in a parent, in a colleague, right? And all of those things are simply because in that moment, that person is tapping into their spirit, their connection to God. So whether it's the spirit inside of you or whatever it is that you believe as a higher power, what are the rituals that one does that allows you to advocate better, for you to care more, for you to personalize the things that you are saying, doing, thinking, feeling? How are you psychologically getting yourself in that zone so that when you get into that flow state, it is like time ceases to exist for you.
Right.
And you begin to be this lightning rod or this magnet that everybody goes, I want more of that. I want to be a part of this orbit.
Wow. Wow.
And that is what spiritual prep is. And each person has their own, I believe, their own means to tap into that flow state. And so what I do is I help people discover what that could possibly be by maybe sharing some of mine, but certainly helping them excavate and then helping them find what works for them.
Beautiful. So your training method also has know thyself as an important aspect, right? How do you get them to open up? Because know thyself meaning also addressing some of the issues that maybe you don't want to address in a group of people. So how do you get them to open up or create that safe space for them to share?
You know, the idea of safe spaces and psychological safety is one that I wish existed on a far larger scale, but doesn't, because we're constantly bombarded with the idea of having to put on a specific facade or front or fit in a certain box in order to survive and thrive. And the moment that you have to put on a mask in order to survive and thrive, it is automatically not a psychologically safe space.
Correct.
And so when I have the privilege to work with people, whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting, it is then my responsibility to be the voice for the voiceless for this idea, to say, listen, if I'm willing to maybe be vulnerable, if I'm willing to make a fool of myself, if I'm willing to maybe use humor to disarm the room a little bit, and know that there are zero consequences for any of these things to happen within this room, I am then in a maybe non-verbal, subtle way saying that it is maybe better to be wrong and alive than correct and dead.
Ooh, say that again. Looking into the camera for our viewer right there.
It is better to be wrong and alive than correct and dead.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And once people understand, like, okay, I can now feel my heart beating in my ribcage. I can now feel that fire churning in my belly once more. I'm now feeling things that I used to feel when I was a kid, when I didn't know the idea and meaning of failure, right?
Right.
Then they go, okay, how do I tap into this life force again? This spiritual energy that I maybe lost because life told me I have to behave in a specific way again.
Right.
And then again, it's like once you get that feeling, why would you want to give it up again?
Yeah, it's freeing.
It is freeing.
It's so liberating, right?
And it comes from knowing yourself once more.
All right. So tell me, given your experience both in Hollywood and in Singapore, what unique opportunities or challenges do you see for Asian artists here trying to make it big in the global entertainment industry?
The entertainment industrial complex is designed to distract. Art is meant to focus.
Okay.
The distraction of the entertainment industrial complex means avatars and your Marvel films and your big spectacle films where go in, don't think about it, just consume, right? These same films will have the same ethnicities of actors on the front lines. It'll still put people in boxes of, if you look a certain way, you get to be this way. If you look, you're going to be in a different box, right? And that also goes down into gender and ethnicity, where we are only slowly now beginning to see a change where, hey, Asians can be leads too. Asians have interesting stories too. Asians have the funding to be able to make some of these films as well.
Right.
But we're only at the starting point. We're nowhere close to being the main driving force for films. If you really want to tell some of these focused stories about what happens in this part of the world, the reality is that the world doesn't need it right now. The world might need it 10 years from now, 20 years from now, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. The more you keep putting out there, the more it begins to be part of the everyday conversation. Right. The more you normalize how you can have an Asian as a lead, the more you can normalize having Asian stories be at the forefront, the more that you, in a way, put out crap content, you also then refine your own voice as a storyteller and you figure out, how do I tell better stories, be it in the visuals, in the writing, in the acting, so on and so forth. where it's just putting it out there, and eventually we get to a tipping point where we go, hey, listen, there seems to be like a critical mass of stuff happening in this part of the world.
Right.
Let's actually explore what's happening here. And we're only now beginning to see it.
I've been told many a times, you jump off the plane and then you build your parachute as you do it. And I've done it with a feature film, full-length, 2-hour-long feature film that I produced here. It was complete local talent, be it directors, actors, and everyone came from a place of passion because they were all in corporate job, which again, you have a very interesting abbreviation for, parent-approved profession.
Yes, yeah.
I loved that. So they were all in their parent-approved profession and had acting as their passion. We shot weekend to weekend for almost a whole year and came out with this product, which in my own wildest imagination and dream also was beyond my expectation because I'd been producing short films. And I said, okay, let's dream big. If I can make a 20-minute film, put that 20 into 5 or 6 and make a full-length feature film. It was a different ballgame altogether. The screenplay, the acting, we had 100+ people associated with the project. Screened it in cinema halls. It came to ZTV, to millions of viewers across Southeast Asia. And now when I'm talking to you, I was like, okay, I took one tiny step in that direction, providing that platform for artists in Singapore, right? So, okay, I can pat my back. Okay, that makes me happy. And that confidence also came from, and I was one of the lead actors in that. I think that confidence also came from learning from you. So I've not just done that Lee Strasberg method of acting once, but twice over at HCAC, right? How do artists in Asia, if they are purely artists and not in a PAP and artist form, earn money?
How does an artist begin to make money?
Right.
If they're not following a parent-approved profession, then they are relying very much on passion, as you said, right? To me, from what I understand correctly, passion means to be okay with hurting yourself for a cause. That's what passion is. If you're operating from a place of passion, then that means that to some degree you're going to be okay with maybe not having a luxurious meal, maybe having that McDonald's meal to be able to survive. It means that not being able to have the time to spend with your friends, your family, because you've got to go for auditions, you've got to be in rehearsals. It means that you can't afford maybe some of the luxuries that all your other peers might have at the milestones that they might be enjoying it and in life. And still being okay with that, because that's in a way hurting yourself for the cause of this vision of being an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, a poet, you name it, right? A musician. And so if there is one piece of advice that I would strongly give anyone who is operating from a place of passion is understand very quickly that your passion is still a business. And how do you learn very quickly the business of that show business? The rules of the game so that you can monetize your work. I'm not saying that money is the one and only barometer of success. However, if you really want to create a sustainable career in the arts, if you want to sustain your passion in some way, then you're going to have to be able to find ways to put food on that table and have your bills paid, and to find ways to not live under your parents' house forever. Because it eats away at your soul, it eats away at your psychological safety, it lives rent-free in your head that, oh my gosh, I can't even pay my handphone bill. How am I supposed to go to rehearsals? Right? So then, how do you understand the rules of the game and that you are a part of this game? And in order for you to do better, let alone maybe win the game, is to understand that it is a business, first and foremost. And most people operate from passion, only focus on the craft of their passion. You know, the methodology of things. How do I play the guitar better? How do I sing better? How do I act better? But they don't realize that all of these arts live within a larger industry that requires you to be able to market those skills in a way that is meaningful, not just for yourself, but for some form of an audience.
Right. And does this also form a part of your training? on helping them then market themselves?
Certainly, yes. It's simple things of like, how do you format your resume as an actor? What does an actual headshot look like? What does a reel look like? What does an actor's website look like? How do you begin to respond to emails? How do you answer phone calls? How do you negotiate for better rates? How do you begin to network with people in a way that the last impression that they have when they leave this conversation is, I had a damn good time talking with her. I just want to be around her more often. I don't know what it is, but she gives me this good feeling. And that is more often than not enough for you to get that call back, if not into this room again, into, hey, I had a great meeting with Shalima. You've got to meet Shalima. I think the two of you could work together. And then that's how that momentum starts.
Right.
All of that is the business of show business. It's learning how to build not just your marketing capital, but also your social capital.
Absolutely. And it's just so important in this day and age.
Yeah.
What are some of the common misconceptions people have about creativity? And how do you dispel them in the workshops?
So, I guess one of the big misconceptions around creativity is, I don't have it. Creativity, if I were to maybe expand the idea a little bit, is the ability to observe the world around you. So even as I'll put myself in the role of an accountant, as boring as it could possibly be, right? How do I observe how better accountants do it? How more seasoned accountants do it? And once I observe, how can I begin to steal from them? So steal from an inspiration point of view, right? I really like how you talk to that client. I really like how you format that spreadsheet. I really like how you negotiate for that deal. I really like how you are working, your systems in this specific way. That inspires me. How can I take that on board? Nice. And then it's not then just stealing and then carbon copying, but then stealing and then adapting in a way that works for me.
Right.
And that same observation, stealing and adaptation works whether you're an accountant, an actor, a poet, a musician.
Right.
So that's creativity. And then the next thing is the idea that it's not something that should be gate-kept. To me, the idea of talent is a conspiracy where only some people are allowed to have it and other people cannot. Talent to me it boils down to smart and hard work, right? If you're really smart about it and it's not working for you, maybe you're not working hard enough. You've got all the ideas, you're not applying it. Or you're applying it, but you're not doing it in the way that is most efficient for you. So then therefore, how can you reframe your thinking around it so that all of the graft that you're putting becomes the craft that you see in your head?
That's interesting, actually. Yeah. So what specific ways do you integrate the concept of know thyself in your corporate workshops? Like, give us an example.
Okay. My work sort of goes through 3 stages. The first stage is know thyself. The second stage is know thy character. The third stage is build thy craft. So to know thyself is to first understand what are your factory settings? What are you coming into that room with that is already working? But also, what are you coming into the room with that is maybe not working as well? And the beauty about facing your demons is that part of the excavation process is, sure, you pull out the skeletons from your closet, but you also pull out the trophies from your closet.
Right.
And you'd be surprised that people actually have just as many trophies as they do skeletons. It's just that we live in a world that tells us not to celebrate, to almost to berate yourself, to punish yourself, to you got to do better. Why aren't you doing better? Why aren't you like so and so? And say, well, hey, actually, I've done a lot to get to where I am, but how often do I even get to celebrate me? And part of knowing thyself is understanding, what have I done to celebrate me? Not just what am I doing that's not working.
Right, absolutely. Can you share a specific exercise or technique that you tell the actors, or even for a corporate professional, they need to do the moment before?
Okay, so I start every coaching session and every group workshop the exact same way. And it is a 3-step process.
Okay.
First, we do a bit of grounding, then we do a bit of breathing, and then we do what I call setting an HD intention, a high definition intention.
I remember this,
Yeah?
yes.
So we'll do it together, okay?
Sure.
And viewers, at this juncture, if you'd like to follow along, by all means, please follow along,
Yes.
okay? Go ahead and close your eyes, Shalima. With your eyes closed, I want you to begin to be aware of all the sounds inside and outside of the space that we're in. If you have any chatter in your mind, that's totally okay. As you begin to be aware of all the sounds inside and outside of the space that we're in, I want you to notice for yourself what's the furthest sound that you can hear. Now see if you can notice for yourself what is the nearest sound that you can hear. Now see if you can notice for yourself an inhale through the nose and an exhale through the mouth, feeling your lips part and your jaw drop. Continue to bring this focus and concentration to yourself and ask yourself, how am I feeling today? How is today different than any other day for me? Am I feeling tired anywhere? Am I feeling tense anywhere? Is there anything weighing heavy on my head, my heart, my soul, my body? Is there anything that's preventing me from being fully present today? If you feel that you have the possibility of releasing some of that excess energy, go ahead. Maybe it's to stretch, to yawn, to crack a knuckle, to sigh. Just to let go of, there you go, some of this excess stuff, just to focus in the body a little bit more. Good. Now, as you do this, continue to check in with yourself. And then in a moment on the count of 3, I'm going to guide you through breathing. You're going to inhale for 4 counts, hold your breath for 7 counts, and exhale everything out in 8 counts. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, inhale, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, hold, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and out. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and 8. Continue to breathe in a pattern that works for you. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a movie screen in your mind. This is the world's best movie screen, super high definition movie screen. And on this movie screen, I want you to place for yourself what you want out of maybe this conversation or the thing that you're going to do after today. Maybe tonight you're going to go on a lovely dinner date with your husband, right? What does the ideal dinner date with your husband look like? And as you begin to see it for yourself, notice that what you're probably doing is you're setting for yourself an intellectual intention. I want a good time. I want a nice conversation. I want to connect, right? Instead, I want you to make that an HD intention, high definition, which means I want you to engage your 5 creative muscles, which are your 5 senses: what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, what you hear. So if you're saying to yourself, I want a connection with my husband, what does that look like in this movie screen in your mind? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you touch? What do you hear in this I want a connection? And once you've got a super HD image, on the count of 3, we're going to breathe in again 4, then 7, then 8. 1, 2, 3, inhale, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, hold, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and out. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and 8. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Wow. That was beautiful. It just brought me back to the HCAC class. With that, I remember you telling us that once your performance is over, it doesn't belong to you.
I wouldn't even say once it's over. It's as it's happening, it doesn't belong to you.
Okay.
Literally, as it leaves your body, it doesn't belong to you. Once it leaves your mouth, it doesn't belong to you, because it now belongs to your audience. You've done all this preparation, all this rehearsal, or lack of preparation, or lack of rehearsal, and you're finally on stage, you're finally in front of the camera, and now when the director goes action, or when the curtains open, and the audience is there, it's theirs. It's absolutely theirs. And if you get precious now about your work, if you say, oh, but I want them to like me, I want them to think I'm talented, I want them to think I'm beautiful and sexy and all of those things, that's not up to you. That's up to the audience. They will take and they will decide what they want from the work that you put out there. You could have absolutely done your best possible work and the audience could have gone, not for me. It's not my thing, right? Or you could have done absolutely horrendous last minute or no prep. And your audience could go, oh my God, Shalama, that was great, phenomenal, fantastic. And you know, oh my gosh, but I barely put any effort into that. I don't know why do they think I'm so wonderful? That already tells you that you actually have no idea what the audience is looking for. The challenge for the artist, the challenge for the creator, the challenge for the performer, whether it's on a personal level, whether it's a professional, whether it's creative, whether it's corporate, is to understand that when you are putting work out there,
right,
let the ego go, let the self-consciousness go. Your job is to take that energy that you typically put in your ego, the energy that you typically put in your self-consciousness, channel it in a way that you can gift it to your audience. The fullness of your work, the fullness of your craft, the fullness of whatever you've prepared, and say, take.
right.
This is my gift to you. If you want to accept the fullness of it and it elevates you and your day, by all means. If you didn't like it, that's okay.
Right. But also the authenticity of the artist comes across once you're not in that vanity position. What specific mindset shifts or practices have you found most effective in overcoming the fear of failure, both in your own life and in the lives of your students?
It's the understanding that as I've made friends with failure, that I've learned to not be so ashamed of it.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm less ashamed of it is because at least I've done the thing. Right? Like, have you? No, you haven't. It's easy for you to stand on the side and judge,
Right.
but you haven't done it. So until you do it, you don't get to say anything, or your opinion holds as little weight as possible. So one, I've done the thing.
Yes.
Two is the understanding of the creative process is, and I'll steal from Ernest Hemingway here, right? And he said this about writing, but I believe it to be true about life, is that the first draft of anything you create is going to be crap. And so if I understand that I'm not going to get it right the first time, then it's okay that I failed.
Yeah.
I will just get it right on take 2, on show 2, on idea 2, on version 2.
Right.
And that iterative process helps me or reminds me that I'm actually heading in the appropriate direction. That I cannot succeed if I'm not comfortable with failure.
Right. Also being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right. And as entrepreneurs, one has to do that. You will never get success in your first show, first theater, first film, nothing.
No.
So one has to keep at it, be very resilient and determined and ready to fail as many times as it takes.
Yes.
Right?
In fact, the father of modern day acting, Konstantin Stanislavski, he was the first person to look through all the different accounts and anecdotes and exercises of acting and put them together in a system, right? The Stanislavski system. And it's a list of 40 tools, skills, and attributes. And of all of these 40 tools, skills, and attributes that he says one needs to, in order to put on something, some sort of performance, he said that the number one and most important skill for an artist, can you guess what it is?
To try.
Grit. Absolutely. It's grit.
Grit. Okay, yeah.
And it's grit and it's willingness. The will to be able to put your work out there.
Right.
The will to put your ego aside. The will to put your self-consciousness aside. Your ability to will a script to life.
Right.
The will to be able to put yourself on stage and to will an audience of 1,000 strangers, maybe your mother, maybe your father, to will them to believe that for 3 hours, you're not watching Kamil, you're watching Romeo. Right? There's a lot of will and grit and trying involved.
Yeah. No, just putting yourself out there. Like, I remember hearing this speaker who said that there are 1,000 people listening, and when I ask a question, suddenly everybody's looking down here and there, they don't pick me. But the one person that raises his or her hand, I know is an achiever.
Yes.
They've had that courage. That is what is required, right? That courage to then say, okay, pick me. I don't know if I'm going to give the right answer or not, but at least I'm trying. And if you don't try, you wouldn't know.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So wonderful. So very quickly now, we'll come to our rapid fire questions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Scariest moment on stage?
Playing the dog as in Old MacDonald Had a Farm on my Primary 2 concert.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever go completely blank on stage?
Yes, I have. I went completely blank on stage and I improvised in that moment. And after the show, I had a director who was not pleased with the work that I did. Yeah.
All right. Favorite cuisine? I know you're a foodie.
Okay. Favorite cuisine? Eurasian food.
Okay.
It will be my last meal on earth.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Most cherished performance of yours?
Wow. Most cherished performance of mine, it's always the last one.
Oh, okay. Favorite life event?
My favorite life event would be meeting my wife and marrying my wife. Yes.
Lovely. What are you looking forward to in 2025?
My daughter's first birthday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Happy birthday in advance to her. And thank you so much for coming. We've all learned so much from this. You shared so open-heartedly. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And to the viewer there who's listened to us, watched us, we are on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, right? Don't miss this out. And we'll keep getting you inspiring guests, inspiring stories. Keep dreaming and stay inspired. Love you. Signing off, Shalima Motial. Thank you so much for watching us.
Enthisiasmosh.
Enthisiasmosh.
Yeah.
So I was scared to say it, so I didn't write it. I think I know the answer to this.
My favorite life event would be meeting my wife and marrying my wife.
Lovely. Great. Yeah. I thought Dominique overtook that. No? Okay.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay,
not yet.
Good. No, I'm happy to hear that answer.
Yeah. After the show, I had a director who was not pleased with the work that I did. Yeah.
All right. I wouldn't ask where, what, how.